You are standing in front of something that has survived 4,500 years. The Great Pyramid of Giza. Still standing, still aligned to true north with a precision of less than 1/10 of a degree. Built without steel tools, without wheeled carts, without cranes. And yet it stands. For most of modern history, the explanation was simple. Slaves built it. Thousands of them forced to work under threat of death. That story is vivid. It is also wrong. And what actually happened is more interesting than the myth ever was. The story begins around 2650 BCE with a man named Imhotep. Imhotep was the chief architect of the pharaoh Djoser. He was given a task: build something that would last. What he designed was the step pyramid at Saqqara, 6 stone terraces stacked into a staircase rising 60 meters above the desert floor. Before Imhotep, Egyptians built with mud brick. He translated that tradition into limestone on a scale no one had attempted. It was the beginning of a building program that would define an entire civilization. Over the next century, Egyptian architects refined the form. The step pyramid became the bent pyramid, an experiment in smooth-sided construction that changed angle midway up when the builders realized the original slope was too steep. Then came the red pyramid at Dashur, the first true smooth-sided pyramid, completed successfully. And then, under the pharaoh Khufu, came Giza. Now, here is the part that changes everything you think you know. In 1990, a horse stumbled into a hidden cemetery near the Giza Plateau. Archaeologists investigated and found something no one expected: the burial ground of the pyramid workers themselves. These were not mass graves of slaves. These were individual tombs, carefully constructed, with inscriptions preserving the workers' names and titles. Skeletal analysis of the remains, conducted by bioarchaeologist Azza Sari El-Din, found well-healed fractures, broken bones that had been set and treated. These people received medical care. Their diet, determined by analysis of animal bones found at the workers' village, included beef and fish. Archaeozoologist Richard Redding, working with the Ancient Egypt Research Associates team led by Mark Lehner, found evidence that the site consumed cattle, sheep, and goat in quantities consistent with feeding a large, well-provisioned workforce. The workers were organized into named crews. We know this because their names survive. Graffiti found inside pyramid chambers and on excavated inscriptions record crew names such as Friends of Khufu and Drunkards of Menkaure. These were men with identities, with pride in their work, with a place in a large and organized system. In 2013, archaeologist Pierre Tallet discovered something even more remarkable: the world's oldest known papyri, found at a harbor site called Wadi El Jarf on the Red Sea coast. These were the actual logbooks of a foreman named Merer, written while he was actively transporting limestone casing blocks to Giza for Khufu's pyramid. The logs record daily work schedules, boat assignments, the movement of stone, and rest days. They are the administrative records of pyramid construction written in real time. They read like a project manager's notebook. So why did they do it? What was the pyramid actually for? To understand that, you have to understand how ancient Egyptians thought about death, and it was nothing like the way you think about it. In ancient Egyptian belief, death was not an ending. It was a transformation. The pharaoh, at death, was believed to join the divine order, to become part of the cosmic forces that maintained the world. The flooding of the Nile, the cycles of the harvest, the order of the sky, all of this was understood to depend on the maintenance of that divine connection. The pharaoh's successful passage through death was not a private matter. It was a public necessity. The pyramid was the mechanism of that passage. Its shape aligned with beliefs about creation and solar symbolism that ran through Egyptian religious thought for centuries. The 4 faces of the Great Pyramid align with the cardinal directions. The descending passage points toward the north celestial pole, the point around which the stars appear to rotate, which the Egyptians associated with permanence and eternity. Every element of the structure was designed with this purpose in mind. And the workers who built it understood that purpose. Egyptologist Zahi Hawass, who directed excavations at the workers' village for decades, describes the workforce as organized on a rotating basis. Laborers drawn from regions across Egypt, working in shifts, fed and housed by the state. This was not forced labor in the modern sense. It was a form of organized national work, common in ancient societies for large public projects. The workers returned home. They were buried with respect. Their names were recorded. They built something they believed mattered,
not just to the pharaoh, but to the continued functioning of the world they lived in. The pyramid building era lasted roughly 1,000 years. At its peak, during the 4th dynasty, around 2500 BCE, the Egyptians built the 3 pyramids of Giza, structures that remain the largest stone buildings ever constructed. Then, gradually, the tradition ended. By around 1550 BCE, pharaohs were no longer buried in pyramids. They were buried in rock-cut tombs, hidden in the cliffs of the Valley of the Kings.
The reason is documented in ancient Egyptian records. Every pyramid had been robbed. Despite elaborate false passages, hidden chambers, and sealed entrances, tomb robbers found their way in. The Great Pyramid itself was already open by the time Arab historians first described it in the medieval period. The contents were gone, the mummies had been disturbed. A structure designed to be permanent had become, by its very visibility, a target.
And so the Egyptians changed their approach. They stopped building monuments the entire world could see. They cut into rock. They hid the entrances. They scattered false trails. And some of those tombs, like that of Tutankhamun, discovered intact by Howard Carter in 1922, survived. You are still standing in front of the pyramid.
4,500 years old. The people who built it are gone. The religion that gave it meaning is gone. The language carved into its chambers is deciphered, but no longer spoken. And yet, the structure is still here, still aligned to the same stars, still rising to the same point. Because 50,000 people across multiple generations believed it was worth building. Not because they were forced to, because they thought it mattered. That is the real reason the pyramids were built, and it is the only explanation the evidence actually supports.